Paul Brunton's Spiritual Essentials. How to Open to Intuitive and Inspired Guidance. Quest Series 3, Video 17. Presented by the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation. There is another way of knowing, besides the ordinary way through the channels of the eyes or thoughts, a way which can be found only by quieting the mind and stilling the emotions. Intuitions are messages brought from the Overself for the blessing and guidance of finite human beings, but you must recognize their value and esteem their source. Whether we call an intuition a thought feeling or an emotive thought, it is still something that is deeper than thinking, different from ordinary feelings. Intuitive feelings can so often be drowned in the outer activity of the body, the passions, the emotions, or the intellect, that only a deliberate cultivation can safeguard and strengthen them. We can receive a new truth more easily in the mind's quietude than in the mind's agitation. Stillness indicates both the consciousness of the presence of soul, the Overself, and that sense and thought, body and intellect have been transcended. When thinking is stilled, intuiting begins. Such internal silence is not useless idleness, it is creative experience. You must educate yourself to recognize the first faint beginnings of the intuitive mood. Train yourself to drop everything else when the presence of the higher power is noticed, and vigilantly cultivate the intuitions it gives you. It is superior to all other human faculties and delivers the gentlest of whispers, commands from the Overself, whereas the other faculties merely carry them out. The intellect thinks, the will works, and the emotion drives toward the fulfillment of intuitively felt guidance in the properly developed spiritually erect person. The source of this knowledge lies beyond the conscious mind. The vehicle which conveys that knowledge need not necessarily be inside us. It may be outside us, in the form of a book, a person, or an event to which we are led, guided, or prompted. When one has reviewed a difficult problem from all its angles, and has done this not only with the keenest powers of the mind, but also with the finest qualities of the heart, it should be turned over at the end to the Overself and dismissed. The technique of doing so is simple. It consists of being still. This is a form of meditation. In the earlier stage, it is an acknowledgement of helplessness and weakness in handling the problem, of personal limitations, followed by a surrender of it and of oneself to the Overself. One can do no more. Further thought would be futile. At this point, grace may enter and do what the ego cannot do. It may present guidance either then or at some later date in the form of a self-evident idea. Those who have trained themselves to listen for the voice of intuition, which means trained to wait for it to speak, and disciplined themselves to be inwardly alert, yet also inwardly quiet for it, do not have to suffer the painful conflicts and tormenting divisions which others do when confronted by issues demanding a choice or a decision. No counsel could be safer and better than that which comes to oneself by way of intuition. But first, let us be sure that it is intuition. How can we tell if inner guidance is truly intuitive or merely pseudo-intuitive? One of the ways is to consider whether it tends to benefit all concerned in a situation, the others as well as oneself. The word benefit here must be understood in a large way, must include the spiritual result along with the material one. If the guidance does not yield this result, it may be ego-prompted and will then hold the possibility of error. The difference between a mere impulse and a real intuition may also be detected in two ways. First, by waiting a few days, as the subconscious mind has then a chance to offer help in deciding the matter. Second, by noting the kind of emotion which accompanies the message. If the emotion is of the lower kind, such as anger, indignation, greed, or lust, it is most likely an impulse. If of the higher kind, such as unselfishness or forgiveness, it is most likely an intuition. If you can come to this belief in the reality of your own higher self, you can come into all the knowledge you need, all the help you need, by heeding its guidance and by applying its injunctions to your daily life. When it guides and illuminates intellect, balances and restrains the ego, that which the wise call true intelligence arises. In the fully trained philosopher sage, intuition is the most active faculty. You can reach the spirit only through intuition. The practice of meditation is simply the deepening, broadening, and strengthening of intuition. A mystical experience is simply a prolonged intuition. A student comment.
I was reading PB and I just stopped for a moment and closed my eyes and I was flooded. Just absolutely infinite golden light. It was just endless and golden and totally full. And then the phone rang and it was gone. It was one of those things where I just knew to close my eyes to contemplate what I had just read. My intuition knew it before I did. That made a big impression on me.
If you learn to cultivate these brief intuitive moments aright, there can develop out of them, in time, mystical moods of much longer duration and much deeper intensity. Still later, there could come to maturity the ripe fruit of all these moods, an ecstatic experience wherein grace descends with life-changing results. Turning to the meaning of the word inspiration, what more can one say than it is an inbreathing? The inbreathing of a spiritual quality that raises a work or a person above the common order of things? When intuition expresses itself through or enters into the creative arts, we call it inspiration. The two are the same in root, but different in leaf. However, it would be absurd to believe that the creative power of inspiration exhausts itself with the arts alone. It can appear in any and every kind of human activity, in the making of a home or of a decision. If inspiration is of the highest kind, it will be a fruitful one. It will manifest in external achievement by the personal ego and in altruistic service, enlightenment, and uplift of the world community in which we live. The whole of life must be inspired, not merely action alone, not merely thinking alone, not merely feeling alone. Inspired living must be the keynote of all your efforts. Every department of your life will be divinized. Paul Brunton, 1898 to 1981, a best-selling British author of a dozen books, spent much of his early life researching the original sacred teachings of Western and Eastern spiritual traditions. He traveled the world to discover and communicate with Christian, Kabbalistic, Vedantic, Buddhist, Taoist, indigenous, and Sufi masters. Blending the richness of his own spiritual experience and inquiry with these ancient and contemporary teachings, he developed a philosophy and path of practice that suits life in the 21st century, one that expresses the greatest wisdom and love available to humankind. Regardless of how it is named, we each have a divine soul, an overself or higher self, that is with us here and now, waiting to be realized. Paul Brunton's writings are a source of deep spiritual guidance for all those interested in living a divinely inspired life. Anthony Damiani, 1922 to 1984, was a prominent teacher of Paul Brunton's ideas and founder of the Wisdom's Goldenrod Center for Philosophic Studies. Inspired to penetrate into and understand the depths of traditional wisdom, he taught classes on the major philosophies as well as the teachings of Paul Brunton. His dedicated students compiled the 16 volumes of Paul Brunton's posthumous writings, titled The Notebooks of Paul Brunton, available from www.larsonpublications.com. The quotes for this video are taken from the following: The Notebooks of Paul Brunton, Volume 5, Emotions and Ethics / The Intellect, and Volume 14, Inspiration and the Overself. Paul Brunton Foundation Videos, Quest Series 1, The Wisdom of Paul Brunton, 7 videos. Quest Series 2, Paul Brunton Answers Life's Perennial Questions, 5 videos. Quest Series 3, Paul Brunton's Spiritual Essentials, is open-ended, and new videos will continue to be added to those listed below. Please subscribe.